Nomad. I like this class a lot because he has one of my favorite guns with a lot of damage, the Marxa. Um, he's got a passive where he does double damage to enemies under fear. He's the only class that does fear. His ultimate inflicts fear in the radius around him. It does not affect bosses. It does do mini bosses. Now, if you know your bosses, you know the carrier is a mini boss. But it doesn't work on the carrier because it used to be a full boss. So you can't fear carrier, sadly, but you can fear your sentinels and your wardens, which is pretty good because those two, the sentinels, are like one of the scariest bosses. But yeah, you spread fear with your abilities and you do double damage them. It's pretty nice. Going over the cards, this is the setup I like to run. This is the Marxa build. So armored shot, when you have stim, you do 60% bleed. When you headshot, you do 5 meters of fear. And every consecutive shot on critical hits increase your your damage up to 200%. So with that combined with your fear, it's pretty great, especially on top of Marks of Mastery, giving you 70% extra damage. So then you can have up to 270% extra damage with bleed, and then you can also do 2 times damage against your feared enemies. So he can do a lot of marks of damage. He can one clip scions forever, as long as they're feared. And when enemies are feared, you can 2-tap drones on crits, which is just so fun. You'd go bop bop, and then the next guy's feared, so he stands still, bop bop, and then it just is a nice little chain. And then all of those feared enemies will give you half stim. Default stim is weak, so you do have to be careful with him. You don't want to get shot too much. Fun thing about Nomad is that the GL gets ballistic damage effects, and he has 60% ballistic weapon bleed when he has stim. So you can have a bleeding GL as long as you have stim, and you can pair that with Anchor on this card, or you could pair that with Veteran on this card, or you could pair that with Combat Medic, the best one, on this card. And I'll go over those classes eventually. So you can get stim, and you can, obviously get stim yourself. So you can keep your stim, have your bleeding GLs, which is pretty ridiculous. The only boss that you won't be able to really keep your stim up on, if it's just that one boss left, is the Flock. Execution Shield, it's a great card for this one build that I'll go ahead and show you now. So this is the Marxa build. And then the Execution build, this card, it's great at level 6. It makes you take no damage, and you get 100% stim. Quite amazing. And then whenever you execute, the enemies will get feared. So that means your chainsaw kills, your retro charge kills, and your standard execution kills. Meat shields do not work. And then you go ahead and get Menace. And I wouldn't recommend going too much farther than that. You'd probably want to have Armored Shot on, and then probably have some Lifeline on for your teammates. So then this is what the Execution Nomad would look like, which is great when you're leveling up, because I think that you get Armored Shot at 14. Yeah, you get Armored Shot at 14. So, and when these cards are low levels, they're still good. So you can use this build when you're leveling your Nomad up to build up to the Marxa build, which is a lot more fun in my opinion. And you don't die as much with this build because you're not running around executing. So your executions give you full stim, you don't take damage, or you get damage reduction, one or the other. And then you get your ult recharged, you get stim from, Lifeline if you just ult and then kill them with whatever ballistic. And then Execution Shield gives you stim, Execution's fear, and they recharge your ult. So it's just a nice cycle of just fearing and getting stim. Moving on to Powered Sprint, just don't Don't use this card. Just don't. Acceleration. Well, yeah, just don't use that card. Sorry. Acceleration. It's pretty cool. In escape, and you can use it in horde. With the. Oops, with. Yeah, intimidation. Acceleration. Then you use your consecutive shot, your marks of mastery, and then you don't use lifeline. And you could also use rain down, but I would probably still actually use lifeline. So you use this setup. This setup, you don't need the bleed. The bleed is not necessary, but it does help. Because sometimes it'll finish off those feared enemies. So then you get your stem. But so running it like this, you're based off, like, you don't need your stem. Because then you're not playing with the bleeding stem. You only use it as a heal mechanic. Because you're getting shot at with a few, hits from here and there. And then you kill something, it fears, you kill another thing, and then you get your stem. And long range, 15 meters, it's not that far. 15 meters is not too far. And for 30% extra damage, that's pretty nice. Because then it basically makes your Marxa do 100%, just flat out. Then you build up your consecutive shot. And then you also still have the 2 times damage from your fear. So it's quite amazing. Concussive rounds, it's good in escape with Execution Nomad, like I talked about. That's where Execution Nomad really shines, especially because you don't get melee damage immunity in escape, and I think you get damage reduction at base in horde, like a little bit from executions, so from like normal drones. So then it's really a great card in escape because it doesn't have those effects when you're executing. Executing is normally bad in escape, but with this, you're just immune, so you're good. And this stuns them, so you can just tap B and then execute them, or whatever your button is. Nasher proficiency, I wouldn't recommend using it. 30% is just not a lot. Same thing like Infiltrator. Menace we went over. It's great for the execution build. So then it's, obviously good in escape. Rain down, like maybe on Blood Drive, and then most other maps you wouldn't use rain down. You would also use it on Turbine, come to think of it, if you're sitting up in the spawn, which is the only place the taps can spawn. So rain down, it's pretty good. Fearsome Aura, I wouldn't recommend it. Like 6 meters, it's not that good. I don't think it's worth the card slot. I would most definitely use Acceleration or, any of the other cards I talked about over Fearsome Aura. Nomad Armor, you can use this with the Execution build. And then if you turn Inconceivable, or turn... I forgot the name of the mod. More Lethal. If you turn More Lethal off, and you're on Inconceivable, you can use Nomad Armor with the Execution build, and then you can actually kind of just run around and kill stuff, so it's pretty fun. Precision Resistance, you don't have enough, so it's just a bad card. Terror, I wouldn't say it's a good card, because it's extending it to 15 seconds. It's, I think, already 10 or 5, I think it's 10 seconds of fear at base. So yeah, it is. At least I'm pretty sure. So it's just not a good card. And for perks, he has crit damage and precision rifle. So same thing as Marksman, just go 1/1. And he does have ammo cap, just like Marksman 2. And I think he has a feedback boost. Or no, he has cooldown. I'm not too sure on his last perk, but just like Marksman, it's the same thing, 1/1 on your damage perks. Ammo cap is great, especially on the GL. You can have a 6-round, 60% bleeding GL. That is just busted. Um, and then I think he has ult cooldown or feedback boost, one or the other. But it's a good perk if you need your fear a lot. On certain maps where they're gonna be pushing you a lot, then you could just hit your ult a lot and get them out of your base and create space for your team. So Nomad can be a great support, especially with the execution build, because then you can just kind of patrol your base and then just execute those enemies with the chainsaw and the retro lancer and the concussive rounds and the flashbangs. You do have to buy flashbangs, but you can execute them, patrol your base, keep enemies out of your base, and allow your teammates to to kill and be safe in the base. And that is Nomad.